Now, in a minimalist studio in downtown LA, Eli Rosen sits across from the host. He looks older than his 32 years, but in a way that suggests survival more than decay. Clean-cut, clear-eyed, and grounded. Between them sits a worn copy of Gracefully Wasted, spine bent, dog-eared. The host leans forward. "If you could go back to Princeton and talk to 19-year-old Eli, what would you say?" Eli pauses, thumbs the edge of the coffee mug in front of him. "I'd tell him it's okay to fall apart," he says finally. "That failure isn't fatal, and that no resume will ever matter more than your ability to sit with your pain and still write the next chapter." He half smiles, and the camera holds the moment. Before everything cracked, Eli Rosen was the kind of kid New Jersey parents bragged about at barbecues. He was Princeton's pride. Son of a hedge fund manager and a corporate attorney, valedictorian, debate champion, lead cellist in the state youth orchestra, a polished Ivy League poster boy in chinos and an untouchable GPA. At Princeton, he majored in philosophy with a minor in computer science, a blend that screamed both ambition and confusion. Professors adored his essays. Students admired his ease, his wit. At 20, he landed a coveted internship at a Fortune 100 company in Manhattan. His future wasn't just bright. It was blinding. But no one teaches kids like Eli how to lose. Being raised to win meant he never learned what to do with pain. The crack didn't show up all at once. It started with a class, the philosophy of consciousness. Mid-lecture, Eli felt the room tilt. He couldn't breathe. His professor's voice became garbled static. His vision tunneled. At the campus health center, a counselor mentioned stress, too much caffeine, lack of sleep. Nothing Eli hadn't heard before. But he knew it wasn't that simple. He'd been holding his breath under the weight of expectation since he was 12. It was only a matter of time before something snapped. To cope, he turned to Adderall, passed from one overachiever to another in dorm hallways. At first it worked. His essays soared, his code ran clean, he lived off little sleep, too much Red Bull, and the applause of professors. Then came Xanax to take the edge off. Weed to calm the noise. Then something stronger at a party, a white pill he couldn't name. He liked how it made everything slow down. The real spiral started during finals. A massive term paper in epistemology was due, and Eli, exhausted, wired, and 2 days behind, plagiarized 3 pages. Sloppy. He got caught. He was pulled into a disciplinary hearing. The faculty panel looked disappointed, not angry. "This isn't like you," they said. "You're clearly not yourself." They offered him an out, a semester suspension, mandatory counseling, and a chance to return in the fall. On paper, it was a generous deal. Instead, Eli packed his bags and vanished. He didn't tell his parents. Just left. Ghosted campus. Ghosted his future. He drifted to Brooklyn under the illusion of being in transition. At first, he clung to the performance. He told friends he was building a startup, writing a screenplay, producing a podcast. Anything to stay tethered to the image of someone still ascending. But it unraveled fast. The startup never launched. The screenplay sat half-finished in a Google Doc. The podcast? 2 muffled episodes recorded on an old iPhone, now pawned along with his cello. By 24, Eli had burned through savings and couch-hopped across 5 boroughs. Each new address brought him closer to the ground. The people who once called him brilliant stopped calling at all. Christmas Eve, 2:17 a.m. Eli lay on a park bench outside a shuttered diner in Flatbush, his only blanket, a thrifted coat 2 sizes too small. It was 29 degrees. His last meal had been a $1 slice 9 hours earlier. He'd pawned his cello that morning, walked it 5 blocks in the cold to a pawn shop with dusty windows and an old man behind bulletproof glass. "You play this?" the man asked. "Used to." "Shame." The guy gave him $85. Eli bought cheap whiskey and bus fare. The rest went to a hot meal and a pack of cigarettes. On the bench, he curled up and felt it. Not just the cold, but the weight of silence. Of knowing he'd once played Bach for rooms full of people and was now invisible. That was his rock bottom, not dramatic, just quietly, crushingly real. 3 weeks later, Eli checked into a shelter in Harlem. He was out of options. The intake worker barely looked up. "We've got a bed for 3 nights, she said. "After that, it depends." He kept to himself, scribbling in a notebook during early mornings when the others still slept. One day, an older staff member, a former addict, now counselor, noticed him writing. "You got something to say?" the man asked. Eli shrugged. "Maybe." The guy handed him an old beat-up laptop. Then say it. Don't just sit here waiting for your story to end. Still numb, Eli opened the laptop. He stared at the blinking cursor for an hour before typing. I used to be someone people believed in. That became the first line of what would grow into Gracefully Wasted. He wrote every day, before breakfast, after group therapy, during long subway rides to nowhere. Raw, unedited, brutally honest. He wrote about Adderall highs, plagiarizing the paper, the cello, the silence of failure. He wrote like it was the only thing keeping him alive. But writing didn't fix everything, not yet. 2 months in, Eli applied for a temp job at a law office, just filing paperwork. He wore a thrift store suit and borrowed shoes. The interview lasted 8 minutes. The woman behind the desk glanced at his resume and shook her head. You went to Princeton? Yes. Why are you here? I'm rebuilding. She didn't respond, just thanked him and moved on. He didn't get the job. On the subway ride back, Eli stared at the ad above the seats. Still writing your story? So are we. It was for a nonprofit literacy campaign, but it hit harder than it should have. He went back to the shelter and rewrote a chapter that night. The day I lied about going back to school, he uploaded it to Medium, went to bed. By morning, it had 30,000 views, then 200,000, then emails, publishers, journalists, old friends, even his mom. 2 weeks later, he met a literary agent at a diner in Soho. She slid the printed chapters across the table. This is a book, she said. It just doesn't know it yet. 6 months later, Eli signed a deal. The year after that, Gracefully Wasted hit the New York Times bestseller list. The memoir wasn't just a success, it was a lifeline thrown into the ocean for every perfectionist quietly drowning. Eli didn't become a celebrity. He didn't buy a loft or get a Netflix deal. But he got clean. He paid back every friend whose couch he'd crashed on. He started teaching writing workshops at shelters and community colleges. He called his father. Not everything was fixed. Some relationships stayed strained. Some guilt stayed lodged in his throat. But something real had been rebuilt, brick by brick, word by word. In the studio, the host glances again at the memoir. You said earlier you'd tell your younger self that it's okay to fall apart. Do you think he'd believe you? Eli smiles. Back then? No. I thought pain was failure. I thought asking for help meant weakness. I thought you could outwork your way out of a breakdown. He pauses, fingers wrapped around the coffee cup. But the truth is, some things have to break before they can hold any real weight. The host nods. And now? Eli shrugs. Now I teach kids who've already fallen through every crack, and I tell them the same thing I wish someone had told me. You're not broken. You're just not done yet.